some amazing folks joining us. Really excited, honestly. We've got folks who are content creators. We've got amazing Khanna and Congressman Khanna. And so without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to our friend, the Soy Pill, to sort of kick us off on this conversation, Minding the Man Gap. All right, thanks.
Thank you so much. I'm the Soy Pill. I make political video essays, and I'm leading this panel on Minding the Man Gap. Folks, young men are flocking in droves and hordes to the right wing in huge numbers. People look at someone like me, they say, you don't have blue hair, you have muscles, how could you possibly be on the left? That doesn't make any sense. So to quote formerly or still disgraced Tucker Carlson Fox News host, what is going on here? What's happening? With me today, we've got some of the most masculine men we could find and scrounge up. They've got testosterone leaking out of their ears. So, yeah, there we go. Let's get some flexes, guys. Mr. Khanna, can you give us one right now?
I can't match that. I can't match that.
Okay. All right. Well, let's introduce the panel. First, we got the Conscious Lee. Who are you? What do you do?
Yeah, I'm the Conscious Lee, former educator. My motto is education is elevation. I like to make political, social content about race, class, gender, ability, sexuality. I'm uniquely invested in thinking about power and domination, how we navigate power and domination, and how we structure systems and institutions. Looking forward to having a hell of a conversation with y'all today. Shout out to everybody in Texas.
Thank you very much.
In Texas.
Shout out Texas. All right, next is JJ, my second favorite JJ after first JJ, Canadian JJ. Go ahead, JJ.
I actually do have family in Canada, so I'm telling you, I'm going to be number one someday. My name is JJ or Joshua. I'm a content creator. I'm 21. Shout out Chicago. And I make content mainly focused around debunking misinformation, but also doing deep dives into things like systemic racism, doing advocacy for marginalized groups, making sure that we all can get to a place where we love each other again. But like was mentioned earlier, not voiding our values to get there, and standing for what's right at all times. That's what I really try to pride myself on. And yeah, looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you very much, JJ. And next we got Mike Smith. Mike Smith, former F-18 pilot. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, that's right. So name's Mike Smith. I run a podcast called Hard Points, named after the topics that we talk about, and then also the kind of the business end of the jet. In my day job, I'm a CEO for a startup in the climate space. I run a company called Acclimate, ACLYMATE. You can find me on all the social media channels at climate_Mike for all of that. And I get the joy of being the warm-up act for the congressman. So looking forward to that.
All right. Thank you very much. And last but certainly not least, Congressman Khanna, please introduce yourself for the few people who don't know who you are.
Well, you guys are certainly not warm-up acts. I'm here to listen and learn from you. I'm Khanna. I grew up in Pennsylvania, where I just was, caught a Phillies game, did some town halls, but I now represent Silicon Valley in Congress, and excited about the conversation.
All right. Thank you very much. I think first what we're going to be doing here, Mr. Khanna, is turning it over to you so that you can talk about...
Ro is fine. You know.
Oh, Ro,
First thing you got to do to get young men is...
You're wearing a suit. I'm wearing a tank top. I feel like I got to be a little servile to you, but okay, I'll call you Ro.
Flags. I got a flag in the background. You got a flag on your shirt.
But I'm breaking the flag code and you're not. So, okay, fair enough. I'll call you Ro. Ro, we're turning it over to you so you can talk about your experience in Congress, working in Silicon Valley, your interactions with Elon Musk, thoughts on Doge, and then we're going to be turning it to masculinity, kind of asking the panel some questions about the state of young men in the Democratic Party. So take it away, Mr. Khanna. Ro, excuse me.
Well, look, I've represented Silicon Valley for 9 years. I've known Elon for 15 years. He blurred my first book when I wrote about manufacturing. The reality is Barack Obama made Elon Musk. He gave, I remember Elon when he was calling Anna Eshoo every week, who was a congressperson from Silicon Valley, begging her, saying, Tesla needs a loan. Can you please call the White House to make sure we get a loan? Because if it wasn't for the Obama administration's $400 million of loans, Tesla would never have made it. And of course, Ash Carter in the Obama administration, who was a great defense secretary, is the one who helped Elon get the contracts from NASA and the Department of Defense to be able to launch satellites. And so the reason I say this is, Silicon Valley has a lot of great entrepreneurs, a lot of great inventors, but its fundamental foundation was based on the government, based on funding from NSF that helped create the internet, from DARPA that helped create the internet, from public funding in Berkeley, which created Unix, which is what every operating system relies on, from funding from NASA that helped create the semiconductor industry, and Xerox PARC, which had the mouse, that was a federal investment. And I think so. A lot of these folks have forgotten all the role that government investment has played in their success, and now have this kind of libertarian philosophy that just get government out of the way, which is convenient when you've benefited so much from the government investment. And now, in terms of this conversation, I do think a lot of young people, men and women, want to build economic success. They want to build things. They want to be able to build economic independence, economic security, wealth. And Democrats need to talk a lot more about pathways to doing that.
All right. Thank you very much. But you're right. You are here to listen because so far we're doing something wrong. Something needs to change. So this is going to be to you and the whole panel. We're going to ask some questions. What the heck is going on? So my first question is a little leading. I'll say that. In my estimation, part of the reason that the left is seen as less masculine is because we are the party that's more open to more variations of the things that men can embody. So the right has a much more strict and traditional view of what a man can be, but we say, hey, be what you want. So my question is, how can we continue to remain the party that allows that diversity of expression while also appealing to the many young men that do want to be traditionally masculine? They do want to have that, kind of right-wing aesthetic, if you will, but I resent the fact that it's called a MAGA body. That's just not the case. So open up to the panel. What's going on there? How can we be both open and accepting, but also appeal to these men who want that hyper-focused traditional masculinity?
I can go ahead if that's cool. I think there's something that I forgot to do my little plug in the intro. I'm also a co-host on a podcast called The Jam, and it was started by me and three other of my friends, and we're all guys, obviously. And we really wanted to hammer in on this issue in particular, like how to get that, because there's not really anything that I think you can put in a promotional material or a campaign thing that will speak to men who seem to fall down the alt-right pipeline and seem to be a lot more comfortable with those rigid gender roles. And I think one of the things that we need to start doing is making that conversation kind of more open and accessible, in a sense of questioning where we get some of these very basic assumptions from. I think that we need to provide an avenue for people who are men who want to be on the left or who care but don't want to seem like they fit any sort of stereotype, to understand that it's okay to be whatever type of man you want it to be. And in fact, the only way you can be okay being whatever man you want to be is if you allow other men that same grace. And the only way you can allow other men that same grace is if you don't waste time telling them that you're less of a man, if you don't make XYZ money per year, if you don't lift weights, if you don't do all the traditional stuff that Red Pill shoves down what is a man. The only way you can find out whether or not those things fit you is if you give men the grace to explore and be representative of what they want to be. And I think that's something that, like you said, we do focus a lot more on the left, but just allowing that, reframing the conversation in that way, I think can take a really good step.
Awesome. Any thoughts, guys? What do you think about that?
I think that I agree with what he said, definitely. What I'll say is that I think that the left needs to be more intentional about how we are reaching out to young men and recognizing that the alt-right pipeline is something that is very affluent, that's on every single, platform, and thinking about the different traditional ideas of manhood and masculinity, and how the pipeline starts with, do you want to be strong? Do you want to be more manly? Do you want to be more masculine? Do you want to, I'm saying that appeals to 15 and 16-year-olds. On the left, we have much more of a way of alienating young men, because we talk more about patriarchy and sexism and think about the various ways that men and manhood destabilizes, a lot of other identities. So for me, I think it's about being real, that the right got better, regardless of how unethical and immoral we think they doing, They've mastered being able to give messaging. They've mastered being able to, even if it's individuals that may be poor, you feel me, that may be, you know, a man of color, that may, you know what I'm saying, maybe a poor man of color that disabled, is something that resonates with them from the message of the right, that make it where we got to come to grips with it. And right now, I think that on the left, we having a hard time coming to grips and giving credit for where Republicans do well. And I live in Texas. That's the reason why I live in Texas. I'm born and raised around traditional ideas of what it means to be a man. And hey, that appeals to young 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds. The last thing I'll say is that domination and power, that is what these young men are seduced by. We don't package power and domination in a way that allows for little boys to see themselves as being ethical, moral actors while also seeing themselves as being manly. You see what I'm saying? That's the reason why they able to win and get these little kids to buy in things like, you know, misandry, men's rights. These women is the reason why we don't feel manly. It's easy to eat it up.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Mike, go ahead. You see, yeah.
Yeah, I think I'd follow up to exactly with what Lee was talking about there, which is to say that the solution for this is not to be more restrictive, it's to be more open. Sometimes it can feel a little bit that the left, and I am a member of it, is not as open to hearing what men's opinions have to say on some things. And we have to be part of that conversation. In a lot of ways, we also have to recognize men are falling behind in a couple of spaces without like buying into the men's rights activist bullshit. Which is to say, we're falling behind when it comes to education. We're falling behind when it comes to suicide rates. We're falling behind when it comes to just broad achievement. If the left wants to speak to those issues, I think that they would find a very willing audience. The other thing I would say about what Willie was going on about there was men. I think we actually have to. I think we have to stomp down this idea that like selfishness is a virtue, and the idea that that you need to be able to like it's all about yourself. Unfortunately, sometimes that becomes corrupt libertarianism in kind of its broader sense here now, not actually the ideological underpinnings of libertarianism, but actually just selfishness repackaged as an ideology. And so I would say that what we need to be doing is claiming a kind of a historical male masculine attribute as well, and allowing that for all men, which is to say, in the past, if you look back to even the movies in the 40s and 50s, a lot of white guys, but so you need to recognize kind of the racial component of that. But there were a lot of guys that weren't like big muscle bound jocks that were seen as very masculine characters in historical depictions. And what we saw as masculinity, as being a man, is the fact that you gave more to your community than you took. You were a leader in your community. You were the person that fixed a problem, and that could be relied upon when the going got tough. And so I think that's like what we need to be aspiring to is not this boy's vision of a man, but a man's vision of man. Let people actually see what men really do.
Yeah. So many of these red pillars talk about this protectionism. You got to protect your wife, protect your kids, and that's great. Obviously these are good virtues, but I think you're right. If you can extend that to, hey, protect your community, protect your, people by paying taxes and getting welfare to the people that need it. I want to turn it over to Ro. You had a very interesting interview semi-recently with Dave Rubin, where you were talking about this sort of like idea of like policing language instead of kind of promoting the diversity, and how you like if we say, oh well, we spent so much time policing pronouns and not uplifting trans voices, I believe you talked about, and you did such a good job. I don't know if you remember what I'm talking about, but you did such a good job that you got Dave Rubin to say, you know what, that is right. I actually do think we shouldn't have a federal ban on trans women in sports. And I'm curious how your overall message with this, like how can we promote diversity, keep being like uplift these marginalized voices, but not be also policing, the young men who feel like, oh, I'm under attack because no one's talking about me, or they don't want me to speak. How do we get that done?
Well, I think we can't cancel people or make people feel like if they express themselves, they're going to be judged or harassed, or if they have a sense of humor that they're going to be embarrassed. and there's a fine line. I mean, look, the reason we don't want just anyone having any kind of sense of humor is if it's mean and offensive, that's not treating other people with respect. But I think that the pendulum swung so far that people were walking on eggshells, and they felt they couldn't express their ideas. And sometimes, someone said to me, and I didn't vote for Harris, I voted for Trump. I'm a 27-year-old kid in my district. I said, why is that? He said, well, because all I heard is that the future is female, the future is female. I said, they're saying the future is female because we haven't had a single woman president. It's not like we've had like 30 women presidents or something. I mean, it's just they want to have one or something. But the way this person heard it, he said, well, I wasn't feeling seen, and I wasn't feeling like I had a place. And he should be free to say that and not be judged for it. And sort of we should be able to have a conversation and ideas and not lead with, well, if you say that, you're not with it, and you have something wrong with you. And so I think a lot of this was a sense that people felt judged, and the other thing was that they felt a lack of respect. I mean, there was a sense at one point in this country that the people who built the country weren't Silicon Valley. They weren't the folks behind the keyboard. They were the folks building the steel and the steel in Western Pennsylvania that won us our freedom more than Japan and Germany. And we had a valorized sense of the working and middle class in this country, and we've lost some of that. And that doesn't mean that we don't have respect for people who do programming, but we have to figure out how do we treat communities who feel a lack of respect for the work they've done, for things they do. How do we respect that again and give them a sense of what they want and that we're listening to them.
All right. No, I think that's good. Yeah, just this idea of balancing that we can't reject them and they're part of our coalition as well. Which kind of leads me into my next question. And again, this is for everyone. What can we do that maybe is a top-down policy that's not necessary? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I think we can get and kind of just unpackage a little bit of what Congressman Rowe said, because I think that's the tension. You know what I'm saying? When I introduced myself, I was very, very, very intentional about talking about how I'm focused on power and domination. The issue becomes that there's been a status quo, a legacy of young boys and men being able to dictate who gets to be judged and who gets to be the judger, who gets to be sensitive and whose emotions matter. So for me, being a young black man from Bryan, Texas, you feel me? I'm thinking about who in the past and who within my lifetime has had the ability to judge. Now, in having a conversation about masculinity and manhood, hey, the soy boys, the people that's seen as being zesty, that's being non-manly, you feel me? The people that's seen as being, in cahoots with drag queens and trans people, hey, those men that feel like that the left them behind ain't got no issue with judging that. You feel me? It's not the left that be coming at me about my progressive politics about women. It be people on the right. So for me, it's thinking about how can I acknowledge that they have been swooned in with the great messaging, but also acknowledging the contradiction. Because that would be my only pushback to what Congressman Rowe was saying, but also just the perception of they were tired of being judged. They feel like nobody's speaking to them. Hey, name an institution or name a system in America that's not dominated by men. You can't name one. You feel
Girl
me?
Scouts.
So to me, it's like, what does it mean to be like on one instance, I feel like I'm not being seen, I'm not being heard, but on the other instance, you politically, socially, economically, men, we make up the dominant. What we talking about? For me, it's like, hey, you say folks be being victims on the right. Those men have no issue being like, you're a victim, you're a snowflake, you're sensitive. And then for me, it's thinking like, so hold on. Y'all be the main ones shit flinging the idea of being sensitive at the same time saying people don't play into your sensitivities. Which one is it? Sensitivity, good or bad? So you get to judge them and you get to say, we can't have drag queens. We can't have critical race theory. We can't. All this is based off of judgments. So for me, it's like you can't have your cake and eat it too. And I think that's the tension that happens when we start talking about the boys and men that are bought in on the right and how we situate on the left. Because let's be real. Women have everything that Congressman Rowe saying is when he talk like going into the people, that shit that women and trans people been saying for millennials. You feel me? So now that some boys and men experiencing it for 5 years, 10 years, and all of a sudden we gonna ignore. That's to me, that's what light a fire up under me and be like, hold on, how does power and domination operate this? It's not on a level playing field. It's not on a level playing field. Ain't no system. That's thing I'll say. There's no systems or institutions that mobilize how men are judged in a way that leads to them being murdered. When we talk about being the number one suicide, that's because of institutions of system of power that deal with how men mess over men, not women. You feel me? And that's the part that makes it where these conversations be hard to be had, because it's like we got to be able to be critical in what we saying.
Yeah, and that kind of does tie in with what Ro was saying about walking on eggshells, which actually I did have a question about this. Have we completely missed the mark in framing some of these ideas, which are empirically true? If we talk about, patriarchy, there's a male-dominated society, white privilege, white people don't have to deal with the same problems that black people do, men have it easier in a lot of cases. All of these things, while we can show, hey, the hiring rates, right? This is obviously true for all of these different things, the generational wealth, it doesn't matter to the person who might be a white man, hears this and says, well, my life sucks in XYZ thing. They don't see how bad it is for those other people, and all they do is feel judged. Is there a way that we can reframe that conversation and not call it, hey, your life is just ultimately better, but rather, hey, all these people are struggling and we need to lift them up without pushing down, even though we're not pushing down these other groups? What do you guys think about that?
I think it's one of those ones that are very complicated. That's why I was saying, because you never want to fall into a trap where you're voiding the truth of the matter in order to appeal to somebody who might not be ready to handle the truth of the matter. And there's always going to be a different way to couch that. And I think one of the ways that we need to see a lot more of, that we've started to see, is not only just analyzing race or class or gender or anything, but trying to take them all into one in a way that makes sense to people. There's a way that you can explain these concepts without the ivory tower, without the research, and even though the research is very important. And I like to think about that in a sense of like how we talk about wealth, how we talk about billionaires now. We've been seeing an influx in the country about getting comfortable with the concept that, hey, there are a lot of people that are hoarding a lot of wealth. And as much as it might not seem like we can afford XYZ to make your life better, let's put in perspective how much money this actually is, and then tell me again that we can't afford this. And I feel like the moment we start looking at that, the moment you're able to understand that, like, hey, these people are telling you that you as a white man are not benefiting, the future does not have you in it, and this is going to lead to a lot of like fatigue. You might want to check out of the political process. But at the end of the day, these same systems that are enabling people to have $400 billion of excess whatever are the same ones that are keeping that money from you and telling you that the brown people and the women and the trans people around you are the real reason why that's being kept from you. And I feel like there's a way to have the conversation, but at the end of the day, it has to be up to the person being ready to hear that side. And I think that it does come into what Ro was talking about not being completely oppositional off the bat and not having the conversation at all, but also remaining real within that framework. Because I do like what Conscious was talking about how a lot of this stuff it just happens to be the case. And there's a lot of ways where we kind of control the narrative. We're the ones who have to have the conversation in general if we want anything to change. So there's ways that you can control that narrative that keep it real and don't just kind of take the onus completely off of men who have been lied to for political gain and for financial gain.
Yeah, and that goes circles back completely. Maybe Mike, you can contribute on this question. The idea that are we? Am I muted? Sorry, am I still here, Jesse? Are we good? Sorry.
Oh, you guys are good. I'm going to come in with Q&A in a second, but let's finish up this.
This last question idea of, is there some legitimacy to completely doing away with all identity, politicking here, and here, and just saying, look, we are going to be passing laws that are good for every person, better welfare, better medical, but uplifting every worker. And in doing so, kind of capturing that coalition without hyper focusing on this group of men or this group of women or this group of like marginalized community. Is there a way that we can top down just have these sort of all-encompassing populist ideas that might lift that up, or do we absolutely need to focus on these and address them since the right is going to do it no matter what?
I think if we're buying into categorical arguments, we're already losing. It's a series of false choices associated with that. And so what I would say is I'm a big fan of Richard Reeves's writing, and he talks about that like gender relationships shouldn't be zero sum. So it's worth pointing out that absolutely institutions of power are predominantly dominated by men, the vast majority of them being white men, and that's just a fact. And so we can acknowledge that and acknowledge that identity component of it, with also recognizing that when you get down towards kind of the middle of the curve, that there's actually men are suffering, particularly black men. And so that there is kind of an intersectional component of talking about that. We can acknowledge that. But the other side of it, I would also say here, is that if you want to build a coalition, you've got to love the people that are in it. You can't make them feel like they're excluded or unwanted or don't belong. We've been talking about that on the other side of the coin, about how we need to be making people that are from less advantaged demographics feel included, and that has to go back. We also have to make sure that the people that look a little bit more like me, and I get confused for a Trump voter a lot when I'm out in public, that they feel like, yeah, man, we're on the same team. I'm here for you. And so I think a component of that would be to be focusing a little bit more on the social or on the economic argument a little bit, which is we're passing this because this is going to benefit the most people. Coincidentally, because we all know the undertone of that, which is that if we're benefiting the most, we're dealing with issues of poverty from socioeconomics. That means it's going to be benefiting people that are disadvantaged more, right? But we don't have to make that the primary lens. And I think that we can acknowledge that is a component without making it the primary lens.
Yeah,
That's
I think.
fine.
If I can add in really quick again, I feel like we have, like Constance was mentioning earlier, we have some lessons we can take from the right, in the sense that you see whenever the right's going to do a thing or pass a bill, they say this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. This is the American XYZ plan, right? So then we can just counter that with putting forward policy that do help the people who proportionally need the help right now, the poor, the Black, the brown, the women, the trans, and everything, and just call it the great American XYZ plan. If you guys want to dig into the details and get mad that a woman who's elderly is going to actually get their Social Security in due time, you can get mad at that. But I didn't say anything about that. I just said that this is the great bill that's going to do all it needs to. Maybe we do have some things that we can pull out of their book and bring about the change we want to see.
Well, that's some great advice for Ro. I'm sure you've got a point of view on that. But I wanted to go to the Q&A a little bit, because the chat is really resonating with this conversation. But seeing a common theme pop up. The theme is a lot of concern about sort of the Democrats walking away from a blue collar appeal. We have folks mentioning their loved ones and others really falling into a MAGA wormhole, largely because they feel like if they don't, they won't fit in their blue collar job. I have a personal color to add this. I have some friends and folks that I've talked to about this who used to work in the trade unions, and they worked at political organizing in the trade unions, and they saw a lot of their folks leave. And I asked them about it, and they told me that it's one of the big reasons is that whenever someone comes in from the national political office or from DC or from somewhere else, they are always telling them what to do, talking down to them, telling them the right way to be speaking and what their opinions should be. So they're feeling very condescended to. I'm just wondering, what do you make of that? Is that affecting sort of the culture we're seeing, where people are feeling like they have to sort of walk away from that to fit in their blue collar communities or their jobs? I'm just curious about that perspective, and I thought I'd ask you first, Ro.
Well, let me start by saying, Mike, I wonder if you're getting confused from a Trump voter because of your beard. I will say I don't get this thing of everyone growing beards. I don't think that's the answer to winning voters. Nor do I think we all need to go hunting and play Madden football. It'd be like someone trying to win the Indian American vote, saying let's go drink masala chai and play cricket. People are smarter than that, and I think it actually comes off as really pandering, and it comes off as insincere. I think that what we need to do is talk about what you're saying, that this country was hollowed out, that the people who built this country, built the steel, built the automobile industry, built the shipyards, their jobs left. Their jobs were automated. Their jobs left with globalization. All the wealth started piling up in places like mine in Silicon Valley, and they looked out and they said, we built this country. We helped really make America what it is, and we don't recognize that. And we don't have the ability to provide for our families, and we don't know what's going to happen to our kids, and we've gotten shafted, and no one really is speaking for us, for giving us the respect of what we did to contribute to this country. There would be no Silicon Valley if men hadn't scaled the cliffs of Normandy, if people hadn't built the steel. And I just think there's a disrespect that they feel. And then they want to know, well, what are you going to do about it? And what are you going to, and you can speak about race in the context. I don't think you have to be, hide that we've had 250 years of slavery and 100 years of Jim Crow, and we've got a 10-to-1 wealth gap. But men want to know whether they're white working class men in Youngstown or whether they're in Milwaukee, a black men who haven't had economic opportunity. What are you going to do to help build this country for the people who haven't had a chance? And, I'm all for, I was, one of the other things I was thinking is, I don't know if the Republicans would sit around with a panel discussion of like, how do we get the male vote or something? It's a very Democratic thing to do. It reminds me of like David Brooks, who's a columnist. He said, Josh Hawley was going and giving a speech that the Democratic Party or Republicans need to be more manly. And he's like, Trump doesn't have to give the speech. He just acts the way he acts. Hawley's already lost by giving a speech on the topic. I'm not sure that this is about, figuring out politicians. I don't think have to like speak to necessarily people's the soul of our society. I mean, to some extent, we just have to be pragmatic, like give people respect, understand what they need to build self-respect, economic security, economic wealth. Be the party that's going to say your kids are going to have more economic prosperity, your communities are going to have more economic success, you're going to have more economic success. We're not going to destroy 20% of this country's wealth like Donald Trump. And I think that's a pretty good start.
As a white man, I feel heard. I feel heard right now.
That's great. Can I just ask?
Go ahead.
Sorry, there's a lot of activists and folks in the party. Listen, our party, for a long time, women have been carrying the more than their fair share of the burden in elections and supporting our party, the overwhelming amount of the base. I've been doing organizing for a long time in every best volunteer office. It's dominated by Black women who are leaders in the community. We got some pushback when we put this event with a manly tone, without including and acknowledging women in the initial outreach. So how do you act manly in the Democratic Party? To your point, Ro, what are some of the things we have to do to make sure that people don't pose a threat to many of the other supporters in the party that might be a little bit scared or intimidated by that?
Can I answer this
for
one?
me or for I don't want to.
Yeah, for you. Yeah, I was just pushing because you're saying that Trump doesn't have to pretend to be manly, he just is. So I was just curious, like if you thought about that tension a little bit.
I think we have to realize. I think if we're being honest, and you look at the Democratic convention over the 4 days we did it, and I was telling some of you were at the convention, and if I'm a white or Black or Latino steel worker or auto worker in Johnstown or in Milwaukee or in Youngstown, and I'm watching those 4 days of a convention, I don't know if I come away thinking that party is going to go think morning, afternoon, and evening about my life, my struggles, what I need to do. And I think that's a real problem in the Democratic Party. Like I think that we have to understand that we have to speak to the entire country, and there are people who have had a really rough time who aren't being heard in our party. By definition, we're losing a lot of these places, and so we can either keep losing, or we can go into these communities and hear what they have to say and try to have them up there more than the celebrities. Like, I this is probably going to get me in trouble, but I'll say it anyway. Like this whole thing about like George Clooney, like, oh, he didn't recognize me on backstage. I was like, okay, like we can go into whether Biden's should recognize. Like, who the hell cares if he recognizes a movie star? Like that's not the person who should be like determining our politics. Like no one really cares what George Clooney thinks in Youngstown, Ohio, or Johnstown, or wants George Clooney to have any, like, go do movies. Like who the hell cares about anything else? And I think our party is like obsessed with a bunch of these celebrities and rock stars. Like the whole thing is like, is Beyonce coming or Taylor Swift coming? Like who the hell cares? Who the hell cares? Like, what are you going to do for people in this country? And that's, I think, the problem.
Amen to that. Amen to that. Well, thank you guys. We have to wrap it here. Thank you so much. This is a great
Can I ask
conversation.
one last question, just real quick, to Mr. Khanna?
I'm so sorry. We
10
don't
seconds.
have any
I
more
promise.
time.
Ro, I just
Okay,
need to
all
know if you're running in 2028, and if you are you prepared for Donald Trump to call you rotarded?
I've been wondering. And there you go, giving him ideas.
We're getting ahead of it. We're getting ahead of it.
He's not that
That's
creative.
not bad. It's not bad. I don't know, but usually he identifies a weakness, and I have a lot of weaknesses. I'm not sure that one will stick. Like the Indian guy being retarded, maybe. I don't know. It's gotta fit.
They'll say anything nowadays.
All right. Well, on that note, we got to wrap there. Thank you so much for the great conversation. We could have this for hours. I hope you guys will join us again, and we can continue this. The chat's really into it. People are really into this. And thank you for all the great perspectives. Thank you so much. We do have to run, but please go to winthefightlife.com. We will connect you with all these great folks, all the places you can follow them, so you can stay in touch. And thank you once again for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks all. And Control, we are good to go. And thank you. I hope folks enjoyed that. Let us know. We got a lot of positive feedback and support so far. We hope to do more of this. And thank you again. This has been an amazing.
What was that?
Well, that was great. Thank you so much, guys. Oh, he's already gone. But hey, nice to meet you, Conscious Lee and JJ. If you guys ever want to collab, especially, I think, did Lee, you say you're going to VidCon? We should totally meet up and say hi.
Yeah. I'll be there.
And I don't know how much creating you do, Mike Smith. You're doing too much real world work, but if you're there too, come say hi as well. Like you have a real job where you actually affect climate change. I say dumb things on the internet. So, yeah.
One can say dumb things on the internet and work on climate change at the same time.
That's true. That's true. Actually, you know what? I don't know if you are doing any outreach, but now that I have a platform, I'm always looking for really good causes. So if you have my email or want to reach out, and climate change is my #1 issue. If Trump was pro climate change, I'd switch completely parties. All right. So if you have some good climate change advocacy, especially my chat is hungry. They're hungry for action. If you've got some ways they could help, please let me know.
We will not be saying a change from Soy Pill anytime soon when it comes to that. But when I get my YouTube stuff back up, then maybe I'll get invited to VidCon one of these times. But yeah, I would love to.
Well, this is me inviting you. It's not as a collaborator. Anyone can go. All right. So.
Yeah, really. I thought it was like a exclusive thing for the longest time.
No. Anyone can go. I'm not going as an invited creator. They don't know me like that. I'm not Dream. I'm not some big Minecraft person. I'm just going with some friends. So absolutely come if you can.
That would be cool. Yeah.
I'll be looking for you, bro. I'll be looking for you when I'm there. Definitely.
Hit me up on Twitter, Discord, something. Friend me, and I'll ping you. I'll be there all week. So.
Yeah.
You guys.
And my chat really likes you, by the way, Lee.
Thank you.
My chat says collab with Lee.
That is not.
No. They're like, we already have a JJ. We don't need another JJ.
That's funny.
Hey, Jonah, what's going on? Thanks so much. That was awesome.
First thing doing something with you too, Mike. Mike, you know what I mean? I mean, really, I already know JJ. I'm trying to collab with both of y'all.
Hey,
and definitely.
That was awesome. Loved that segment so much. That last question, I'm so happy we gave you the time to ask.
Yes.
Beautiful meme. I love you. Thanks, guys. I just want to say thanks. You guys are great. Have a good night.
Thanks so much. We appreciate the opportunity. John. Nice to meet you guys.
My pleasure.
Nice to meet you guys.
I will return to my chat. I hope I see more of you guys in the future. And thanks, Jonah. Guys, Jonah organized this for me, chat. So he's great. He was in that debate. So we love Jonah, don't we, folks? We love him.